I was talking to a mate of mine. Yes, it was like as if it happened yesterday. You know what I mean? And the time in Albany Prison, yeah, when I was in the kitchen and like Big John McDonough, a big Irish guy, he's a big geezer with a beard. He was massive, mate. He was really powerful. He was go down the gym, but he used to do loads and loads of squats. He had massive legs, and he was really strong, yeah. And I was always wary of him, you know what I mean? Always a bit wary of it, old John, because he could have a fight, and he wasn't afraid of no one. And me and him used to have loggerheads about the milk and all that. I should nick the milk and all that, yeah. Anyway, so John one day came up to me. He said, "Look, I'm going tomorrow." I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to the roof." I said, "John, leave off." He said, "I'm going to the roof." I said, "Yeah, you're going to get up there." He said, I'm a climber there." He said, "I'm a climber at drain pipes." I said, "John, you never got there drain pipes, mate. Never." You know what I mean? And he had another guy with him, a young guy, I forget his name. This young guy was like a gymnast, fit, mate. God, he could do some. He was so fit, you know. And John was going to go with him, and then they got about another 4 or 5 to go with him, yeah. And Johnny Patton. I mean, Johnny Patton was so game. I mean, people check him out. I don't know if Johnny Patton's dead, but he was game. He was game as they come. He wasn't fighting no one, Johnny Patton, but he was a nice guy, black hair, but was dangerous, very, very dangerous, son. And, before that Lord Batten, is it Lord Batten? Before that turnout when the RA, he started to put fences around all prisons, big fences. Before it was all open, there was no fences, there was always dogs. So he was the one who put it up, Mount Batten, that's it, Mount Batten. And before all that started, they're putting all the fences up, the yard used to be open, then they started putting the fences on there. The yard used to be open, and everybody would be running around, running around the yards, and there'd be Pat Adams and all that. Pat Adams, I used to call him the antelope, because he used to run with his legs very high, good runner, Pat. And anyway, so all walking around and all that, and all of a sudden John came up to me, John McDonough said, "I'm going to go in a minute." I said, "What you got the overcoat for?" he had this overcoat, short overcoat. I said, "What you got that on for?" I'll show you later. And all of a sudden they all got together, and John went, and the gymnast, they went. And I tell you what, mate, the screws, they couldn't do anything. It was just, just so quick that the screws just like looked as if like, what's going on, you know what I mean? And then the first one up there was the gymnast. He got to the top, and he had these ropes wrapped around it. They made these ropes up, wrapped around their waist, and out of sheets and all that, yeah. And he lowered it down, and John was coming up, and he had John anyway, but John could get up anyway by himself. He had good legs, but he only had little gutters, little drain pipes, yeah. But anybody got up there, and there was I think there was about 8 or 9, right? But Johnny Patton was the last one. I don't think actually Johnny Patton was involved with them to go, but he just went, And when they got up there, mate, you could see him running across, and all the screws, bang up, crash, they'll come out, loads of them, yeah. And we all sort of like William banged up, and I'm in the kitchen. So because I'm in the kitchen, they got to let us out because we got to do the kitchen. We got to work the kitchen out, work the kitchen, do all the jobs. And John McDonough was on the coppers, so the coppers is one of the best jobs in there, and it's a job that's got to be done. So I took the coppers, I run the coppers, yeah. So anyway, they was all running around, and we was all getting all the meal. Everyone was banged up, But when all the meals went up and all that, people. All that lot of running across the wings. The wings all come out like that, and you had a big long corridor. Then you had the gym at the top, but as you got on top, they got on top of the gym, yeah. And those, run across the roof and put down the sheet, And what they got us to do was like everybody went to the top floor, and then we took like put down a little rope, and then we tie it up, but it's too far to go down to the bottom on the next floor, so everyone's got to the top and take all the bits and pieces up. So you just take pillowcases up fill them up with all sorts of stuff, but things they could eat easily without having to cook them, you know. But in Albany, you had loads of flasks. Everybody had a flask, and so you know you fill your flasks up with teas, coffee, milk, everything. You know, make a nice cup of tea, big coffee pots and coffees, you know, full of coffee and full of tea, and you know, when they got flasks of soups and everything. It was all done nice for them, yeah. And you know, then you take cakes, biscuits, sandwiches. It was everything they had everything, you know. And you know, and the screws were going mad. The screws would come out, then the screws would come out onto the wings, down the stairs, and try to stop us. You're nicked, and all that amount of people who got nicked is unbelievable, you know. But in the end, they closed it down. What they'd done, you know, I mean, Johnny Patton, I think Johnny Patton, that's why Johnny Patton was one of the last, because they wanted to do Johnny Patton bad. Because Johnny Patton was one of the last ones to get off the roof one day, and they come up by ladder and stopped Johnny Patton. And Johnny Patton nutted one and bashed the other one up really bad, and then got onto the gym roof, yeah. And so Johnny Patton was in a little bit of trouble anyway, but they was in trouble anyway with what they did, you know. And then I'm trying to get the local paper. There's a local paper here that when they took pictures of the when, you know, when they got onto the roof of the gym and everything, Big John McDonough, because he's a big guy, they got a cartoon. I'm not quite sure Pop Son done it or whatever it was, Mirror or whatever, but John was like there pulling a helicopter out of the sky, like what's it, Guy the Griller? Is it Guy the Griller, whatever it's called? You know, got pulling a big thing out of the sky, the helicopter. And I'm trying to get. I'd love to get hold of that paper. I'd love to get hold of that, you know, because Big John anyway. They was going on for quite some time doing that, and after Johnny Patton bashed up the two screws, and he did bash them up, you know. And when he sort of one to the gym roof and took the ladder, pulled the ladder up that they come up in, a ladder, and ran across it, and it went onto the gym roof, and they took it up, yeah, so they could get up and down a lot easier. And they decided to scaffold the end of the gym so they couldn't get onto the ring, scaffold it, all crisscross it like that, with all barbed wire on and all razor wire so they couldn't get down there. But what they'd done, I suppose, in a way, was like, there's no such thing in prisons as against the law, you know what I mean, none of that shit. But it was human rights in a way, because they stopped them getting water, and it was the hottest summer ever, 1976, and they had no water, you know, and it was like people were like, you know, going on visits, you know, with bottles of water, and as they were going past the gym trying to chuck them up, you know, and then they get nicked, have their visit and come back and get nicked, you know. But a lot of people tried, you know, a lot of people were trying little bottles and all that and everything, trying to get out of it. They couldn't do it. And anyway, I mean, little bottles of water weren't about them, but they had little flasks, and, you know, again, smash the flask up, but who give them monkeys? We're trying to open them up there, yeah. Anyway, and in the end, it was so hot there, 76, it was like the hottest ever, you know. They had to come down. Otherwise they'd have died up there, mate. And I think John McDonough was one of the first ones to come down. Everyone's screaming and shouting. Massive guy, you know, that undo the scaffolding and get them all down. They was all weak. Because they hadn't had no water, no more food or nothing. So it was in a bad way. And they all come down by and one, Johnny Patton. Johnny Patton stayed up there for about 3 more days. He was as black as that, I swear. He was like, I think he's got a bit of that in anyway, John, you know, but he was black, mate, you know. And they come down and everybody's watching, mate, you know. And, you know, people are walking about looking, you know, and, yeah, mate, they didn't bash him up, you know. They didn't bash him up then, but I bet when they got him on the block, they steamed into John and, you know, and give him a right good hiding, do you know what I mean? But they all got shipped out. Johnny Patton, I believe, went to Parkhurst, and there was a big story about John, you know, and this Scotch guy in Parkhurst. There's some card school thing going, and it's supposed to run Johnny Patton out of money. Johnny Patton was just a nice guy, but you know, he wasn't really one aggressive sort of guy. You know, he was as better as he could ever fight. He was not aggressive. You know, you could take advantage of that fact. You know, but if he did go into on you, he was in trouble. You know? So the guy, the Scottish guy, has took advantage of that fact, and he nicks a lot of money off of John. You know, i.e. tobacco and other things, drugs and bits and pieces, because John likes a drug. And, you know, John had a go at him. The guy pulled a knife out of John. You know, John went away, and then John got a knife out of the kitchen, a big boning knife. And, you know, and them two met, and then John stabbed him to death, you know what I mean? I think he stabbed him about 20 times. He never stopped, yeah? He never stopped stabbing him. And when the screws come along, John was going mad. I'm not quite sure if any screws got cut up or whatever, but John was going crazy. You know, I mean, we're only telling you what we was told, you know, ourselves from Screws and other people that had come in from Parkhurst, you know. And they reckon you know, you could hear Johnny Patton screaming, you know, screaming from the block. You know, they really tried to kill him, and they smashed him to pieces. Bad, you know, really bad. And after that, I mean, he'd been down the block a long time because of getting on the roof, and they bashed him up. But when he came up and that happened to him, he stabbed the geezer to death. They took him back down the block, and he cut screws up as well, a few screws, and then they tried to smash him to pieces, and he got him in the block, you know. And then he got shipped to, I'm not quite sure where he got shipped to, but you know, there was a few people there, and he was in a cage, John, you know, and you know, he was, I think, I'm not quite sure if he was with the other guy. Who's the other guy who's doing, I'm terrible with names now, I'm really bad, especially first in the morning, crikey. Anyway, and then Johnny Patton, I'm not quite sure if Johnny Patton's still around. I'm not quite sure Johnny Patton come out, he's been out. I know that he was doing a 12, or was he doing a 13 or something like that, 13, 14. But when he got on the roof, I mean, he had quite a bit of work to do. So when he come off the roof and all that, and then he stabbed the guy, so he got a life, yeah? And that was what? I'm not quite sure, not 1970 something, 76, that was 77. About 77, Johnny Patton stabbed the guy up bad. Yeah, man, it's, when you go back and look at that, we talk about that as if it was yesterday. You know what I mean? Long old things, mate. I mean, things that, I've got so many stories about prison, about things that's happened and all that, and people being stabbed up and all that. It's crazy. There wasn't a lot of what I say, oil from the kitchen, and like, you know, but chucking oil over people. I've seen a couple of hot water people being chucked with hot water, but not oil. I see a few people get really bashed up bad, really bashed up. I mean, you know, to be stabbed in Albany was like normal. Albany was a dangerous prison. You know, you had to be able to look after yourself to survive. You know, look what happened to me, but that would be another day. I've told that story before, but, you know, I've seen some terrible fights in there, you know what I mean? Terrible fights where people get cut up bad, you know, and, I mean, I mean, I've told it before, but when Jackie, look at me, Jackie, when Jackie didn't want to leave prison, and, you know, cut himself up downstairs. And when I say cut himself up, he ripped himself to pieces. You know, just ripped all his legs, arms, wrists, a lot, yeah? And because he didn't want to leave because of his boyfriend. You know what I mean? And he wedged up. He wedged up so bad and put nails under the doors and nails into the concrete. I mean, you couldn't even. The door was like solid. You couldn't get through it. And Johnny Barry decided the only way out was to get the acros from upstairs when that gay guy burnt himself to death. Look at me when he burnt himself. It's a thing that goes on 24/7. You know what I mean? And when we actually did get the door off, that Jackie was like, I mean, she had survived, or he survived, but he was lucky because, I mean, what he'd done to himself was unbelievable. But just to prove a point, you know. But when you say prove a point, he'd gone so far with it that he knew that, or she knew, or he knew, or whatever, that he'd gone too far and he was going to die. And he couldn't get out. He was screaming, and he couldn't get the wedges out, and we couldn't smash the door down. So the only way we could do it was with the acro, yeah. And then me and John got silly days off, and John went mad, and I didn't say too much, but you know. And then, I mean, Albany, mate, was a mad prison, you know. And when you save someone's life, I mean, you save someone's life, you expect. We don't do it because of that, but if you've done it, you expect something out of it. And they never give us nothing back. I think a couple of weeks, and you just save someone's life, or something stupid, some silly thing. I can't really remember, really. It was such a long time ago, yeah. But I know Johnny Barry went absolutely crazy. I could hear him swearing and shouting and screaming, "You wankers, you everything," you know. And he got me in there and done the same thing with me, but you know, in the end of the day, you know, I didn't do it for time off, but it would be nice to get half a sentence off. You know what I mean? If we'd done a big sentence, as we all were. Albany, man. Used to come out of Albany, out of the cells, when they goes to go click, you know, and let you out of the cells. It was like walking into a time bomb. You never knew if you was going to get plunged up. You never knew. You just didn't, you know, you'd be walking along the land and all of a sudden say, "Oh, someone get done," you know. It was like an American prison. It was quite, you know, it was quite nutty. People were getting cut, chopped up like this all day long. It was crazy in there, you know. But as I say, it was survival of the fittest. I used to go down to the gym 2-3 times a day in them times, yeah, in from the kitchen. Yeah, I used to love it, man. And go late at night, go to the gym late at night as well. The gym was my life at that time. Gym and yeast, eating yeast, baker's yeast, and drinking milk and everything off the coppers. Just drinking all the potato water, carrot water, every water you got. I was to drink it with pepper. Mad. I was mad, man. I was right into them, crazy. And blimey on, mate. I mean, to see people in the kitchen was one of the worst places as any fights in there, mate, because there were so many weapons, you know what I mean? You had the pallet, them big things you should do the coppers with, you know, you had all the knives from the butcher shop, you had fucking blades everywhere. I was on the bakers, there's blades there, everyone had knives, yeah?